All right. Welcome to the One Flow podcast. My name is Gopal Khalsa, and I am your host for this journey through the teachings of Kundalini Yoga and meditation, as well as any kind of interesting stuff that comes from the cosmos. So today's episode, we're going to talk about hard times and how hard times are actually a blessing. I've been having a challenging few months myself here. We had some family emergencies. My mom has been in the hospital exactly 2 months to the day, so 60 days ago. We had to rush out to Las Cruces, New Mexico, because she was having emergency surgery, and she had a lot of intestinal problems when her whole colon was removed and part of her small intestine. And it's been this sort of odyssey through the medical system ever since. And my wife and I were out for 30 straight days for a month, and we had to go home, get our orders and affairs in order, and then come back out here to help her through this kind of trying time. I'm an only child, so I'm the only one that can help her out. So it's been an interesting time, and being in these yogic teachings and practicing these teachings, it's really cool because this is a time when you apply those teachings. So I've been reflecting on that, on having challenging times and what that means, and how to best get through them. So I've been exploring a few things that I'd like to share with you. The main idea of this is that the difficult times are actually a great blessing. Now, we tend to come upon something that's uncomfortable or difficult or a challenge, and we don't want it. We want it out as soon as possible, and that's totally fine. But very few people, I would say, maybe not. Maybe there's a lot more out there that know this, and I hope so. But a few people recognize that everything's got another side to it. So every cloud is a silver lining. So if you come upon a challenging situation and it happens to go on for a little while, it's good to search for the benefits in that. So how's this making me better? How's this benefiting me? Because we live on a planet of dualities, polar opposites. Everything's got an opposite on this planet. Up, down, hot, cold, in and out. There's an opposite everywhere. But we tend to react to the negative, with a negative mind, and we oftentimes get stuck in that negative mind and don't get to the positive or even the neutral mind. So the mind has 3 gears, and the first gear of the mind is negative, and that's so that we can search for danger. So we can search for danger and things that are going to harm us. And then, providing you have enough pranic energy or you have enough control of your mind, then you can actually, so you don't even really control it. It's sort of automatic. You should shift from negative to positive automatically if you have enough energy and you're in a kind of a fairly balanced state. If there's imbalances, you can get stuck in the negative. That happens to a lot of people these days. And even in some cases, you can get stuck in the positive and not see the negatives. But there's 3 major gears or shifts to the mind. The first is a negative, and that's natural. It's normal. You want to scan for danger. You want to scan for things that are not good for you. We're supposed to do that because, again, it's a dual world, and in that dual world, you're looking for both sides of the story. And my friend Remington Donovan, I always quote him, give him credit, because he's an amazing numerologist, and he knows a lot of stuff about many different art forms, including magic and Kabbalah and many different things. And we were doing a workshop at the same studio back to back, and I sat in his class, and he described the negative mind, or the number 2, because in the yogic teachings, 2, 3, and 4 are the 3 gears of the mind. Negative mind is the second energy body. Positive mind is the third, number 3, the third energy body. And the neutral mind is the fourth, number 4, out of 10 bodies. So he said, when you get to the number 2, which is the negative mind, it's actually a good thing. And it's kind of like looking both ways when you cross the street. You're just trying to make sure that, you're seeing both sides, and that something's not going to hit you or blindside you, right? I love that explanation of the negative mind, because especially in our spiritual awakening world, people become spiritually awakened and they're like, well, negative is no good. Positive is all good. That's not true. Negative is given to us for a reason, so that we can look both ways before we cross the street so that we can make sure that something's not going to hit us from behind or from the side that we don't know about. So the negative mind is a good thing. But what tends to happen is when we get into a hardship or something tough, we we go to that first gear, the negative mind, and then you stay there, and you don't really see the positives of it. So that's a really easy place to get. So in an example with my mom, this thing, there's a lot of negatives, and that came up in the beginning. Like, well, we have our business at home in Los Angeles. We have all of these things that we have to do. My wife and I both have, you want to call it careers. We have stuff we do. I like the word career too much. It's too mainstream. But we have stuff that we're doing, and it's very challenging when something like this comes up and you have to put your whole life on hold and adjust. So the first thing is that it was thinking, how's this going to impact us? This is a bad thing because it's taking us out of our world. It's costing us money that we don't have, so on, things like that. But we are been in these teachings long enough to go to the positive side and realize that there's so many positives to this. We're getting out of Los Angeles. We're in Las Cruces, which is a beautiful place. We've wanted to actually step out of Los Angeles for a while. It actually turned out that it benefited us financially because to be away for so long, we had to sublet our place, and that's actually benefit to us. So there's a lot of positives there also, but most of all, the real positive on the human level is that it's been a real opportunity to get to know my mom deeper for both my wife and myself, and to also get deeper into the heart space. One of the biggest things I learned in this challenging time is that you can't you can judge things, and you should judge things, but you really just don't know what someone else is going through. And you can observe, and you can definitely identify, well, that person is this or that. But it's important to sort of unsee those faults afterwards and be like, well, I'm not going to leave them in that box. I'm not going to leave them in that box that they're bad because they did this. I mean, honestly, my mom had problems with her intestines for a long time, and we told her, hey, get it fixed, get it checked out, that kind of stuff. So it's really easy to judge there and say, well, she's in this position and she had this bad surgery because she caused it. I'm being very honest here. Most people wouldn't do that, right? Because your mom's in the hospital and stuff like that. But I'm being very honest here. Those things sort of came up. The fact is, she did the best she could. She did the best she could. And this is just sort of what happened. So the benefit here in this situation is it's really put us deeper into our hearts and being understanding and like, okay, forgiveness, that's fine. She did the best she could. How can we add more love to the situation? Be kind and that sort of stuff. On the other side of that, right, because everything's got the flip side, how do we take care of ourselves and the stuff that we've got to do? We found ourselves we feeling obligated. We got to go to the hospital, a couple times a day and this and that. My wife both going over there. And then we realized we had to do she's 60 straight days in the hospital. And it's just not practical. We have stuff to do. We can't go over there and be there all the time. So we've started going I'll go and we only go for an hour or so. And my mom, my wife will go, and she'll go on another day. And we've had to do that because it benefits us. And there's, nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing for everybody. And my mom doesn't feel shortchanged from that or anything like that. So negative assessment is a good thing, but you can get stuck there if you don't get to the positive. Now, the positive mind is there, just like we said, I was finding the positives in this situation. The positive mind is there to show you the benefits and what's good for you. And then we have the neutral mind, and the neutral mind is where you go into your intuition and then you can take the action. So if you have a good balanced practice of pranayama, breath work, and yoga, physical yoga, and meditation, you can develop your mind just like you develop a muscle, and the mind can become very balanced to where you hit those gears real quick when an event comes up, super quick, at the speed of light. And I remember one instance where I was starting out doing yoga, And there was this old yogi. He's since passed away, but he was with Yogi Bhajan sort of early on, and this teacher that I was taking teachings from in Los Angeles at the local studio, and he was her teacher, and so he put on a gong workshop, and I had never been to a gong before, and so it sounded really Kundalini. I got the Kundalini bug. I got bit, and I just loved it. It was the most amazing kind of yoga martial art to me. I couldn't hardly believe how you could go into a class and feel so high and so different walking out. And I'd been through a lot of fitness stuff from West Point through the Army and so on, and I was in tremendous shape. And what Kundalini yoga did in an hour and a half, I just couldn't believe the feeling of it. So when she said, "Hey, he's doing this gong workshop," I said, "Yeah, I want something new. What's this gong thing?" So we went over to this studio in Hollywood, and I was sitting right up front. He's playing the gong, and I had never experienced anything like that in my life. That gong, I was so high. That gong, the sound of that gong hit all the glands in the brain. And I'd been, and I had tested out drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And I was higher from that gong than I had ever experimented with any physical substances. And so we're all sitting in the foyer afterwards, like sitting on a couch, and like some of these studios, you hang out afterwards, chat out in the lobby. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm still looking like a military guy, nothing like this. I got a short haircut, and I got my West Point sweatshirt on, which actually says USMA, and which stands for United States Military Academy. And I'm sitting there, olive drab green sweatshirt, and I'm so high from the class. And the guy, the old yogi, all dressed in white bana, white turban, long beard like this, and sitting right across from me, his big smile on his face. And he says to me, USMA, what does that stand for? And so my negative mind immediately grabs on it, because in the Army, and I grew up in the 70s and so on. So I grew up in the Vietnam era. I was a little kid, but I knew that whole thing. And so there was this kind of feeling amongst soldiers, even in the 80s, which is when I served, that, some people are very much against the military and that kind of stuff. And it's usually like kind of hippie-ish people, right? So in an instant, right, he said that to me. He said, "Oh, what is that?" And my negative mind immediately went to, this guy is an old hippie, and he's going to give me shit about the military because I looked the part and everything. But this is the beauty of Kundalini Yoga and that class, because what it did was it balanced everything in me, because it was such a powerful, strong class. So my three minds, negative mind, positive mind, and neutral mind, were all balanced, as were, my chakras and all that kind of stuff, and the 10 bodies. So I was in a really good balanced state. So what happened, and I noticed this, and this is a great example I like to give of the functions of the three minds. And so I immediately went to negative, and I was like, "Oh, this he's going to jump on me." And then I watched it happen in my own mind. It literally said to myself in my mind, "Oh, who cares? It's where I went to school. It's who I am. Just tell the guy." So I said, "Oh, actually, it stands for United States Military Academy. It's West Point. It's where I went to school." And he smiles like really big. He goes, "Me too." And I was like, jaw drop. What? I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm a little older than you. When he said, my dad was a general. And so I was an Army brat. And of course I went to West Point." He goes, I couldn't stand it though. I hated it. I quit after the second year, but I was there through my yearling year, my second year. And then he goes, "Oh, I was over in Germany and so on with my dad afterwards. And I met my wife and blah, blah, blah." But then he went on to explain to me how Yogi Bhajan was a military officer, and he was a career military officer before he came over to the United States in 1969 and started teaching. And so this was a great benefit to me, because I was like, wow, okay, that's why I'm here. Because I had showed up in Los Angeles, started taking these yoga classes, and I was like, which one doesn't belong with the other? This shouldn't really be my game. I'm a workout guy. I'm a fitness guy. Yoga is, women's sport. People are leotards in some of these hatha classes, So I go in these classes all the time. Like, I loved it, but, I was kind of like a secret junkie where I was like trying to hide the drugs. And I'd go to these classes, and I was like, I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not like these people. What am I doing here? And then all of a sudden, so I come to this thing, and he's like, oh, Yogi Bhajan the master was a military man. And not only that, but Sikhs are a whole martial culture. They picked up the sword and they fought because, they were saints, and they were, the people of God. But, shit was happening in the country, and they decided that, they raised armies and started fighting back because they were being persecuted. And also that they went to the aid of the Hindus who were being persecuted. So I was like, it all kind of fell into place. But this was all because my mind was balanced. And that's what Kundalini Yoga did for me that day. And that's another example of the neutral mind. So the negative mind, I was like, this guy's going to attack me. The positive mind was, who cares? It doesn't mean anything. You're you. Just, let your freak flag fly. And then the neutral mind, right, which gives you the intuition. It gives you the intuition, the ability to kind of see, the lens to see, and then to act. So it allows you to just kind of flow with the spirit. So your spirit is what makes you act. And then when that happens, then the best things happen for you. So in that instance, I was able to get something I needed from the universe, which was in that moment, this guy telling me, oh, you belong here. Here's the history of the thing. And so that's how it's supposed to work: negative, positive, and neutral. So, but when you're in hard times, you can get into a sort of a loop, which is, if you're hitting challenges every day and those things, and that situation is not going anywhere, then your subconscious is feeding you memories that, other times that were tough, and you can stay in kind of a loop, and you can get depressed, and you can get negative. So if you're getting punched in the face a bunch, you can get negative. And so it's hard to get to the positive mind. So that's why it's really important, especially if you're going through hard times, to keep your practice up and keep it strong, because that'll keep all of your human elements balanced. Those three minds, the three gears of the mind, negative, positive, and neutral mind, will all balance. And then, just like I give that example, the negative will come up, but then you'll be so expanded that it'll immediately, without you even having to do anything, go to the positive and feed you like, well, there's a benefit here too. Who cares? Whatever, just do it. And then the neutral mind will be like, yeah, go for it. Tell them where you're from. Who gives a shit? And then you act. And then, because that neutral mind that gives you creative infinity. Creative infinity comes from that neutral mind. So in any situation, right, you can assess the negative, assess the positive, and then go into creative infinity. And this is where it's mind-blowing, because yeah, it seems like this linear time. I was in the class, the guy was sitting there, and this whole interaction happened from tick tock, A, B, C, D, E. But really, everything is in that moment, right? And time is not actually linear. So because I was balanced, and that the negative, positive, neutral all happened at once, boom, 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 that creative infinity delivered me something. It delivered me it delivered me a gift, which was, here's what you've been looking for. You're actually on the right path. You get what I'm saying here? This is a real big one, right? It's so time is not actually linear. It's kind of like it's a pulsation of the infinite moment. And so that's what happens in the neutral mind. This is the beauty of the human being in that neutral mind. The neutral mind is sort of a constant meditative state, or to be able to be in that. And so we have this pulsation of the negative, positive, and neutral in every moment. So we can be in the duality and then reach into the one flow, right? Which is through the neutral mind. The one flow is coming through the neutral mind. That's the spirit, the soul, that the one creative force going through everything. Ek Onkar. So that's what we got, negative, positive, neutral mind. So again, that's one of the main things that get balanced. But those are 3 of the 10 bodies. All 10 bodies get balanced. We won't go into what all the 10 bodies are. They're easy to find. But then all the 5 tattvas. Tattvas are the elements. We're made up of the 5 elements: earth, fire, air, water, and ether. Those get balanced all by the glandular system and the breath and so on in Kundalini Yoga. And then there's these qualities of the mind, the 3 gunas: tamas, rajas, and sattva. And those are the 3 different colorations that the thoughts get when they come through. So all of these things get balanced, and then you're able to, in the moment, be in the world, operating in the field of time, catching the negative and the positive, being in the duality and the opposites, but you're being fed, you're being moved by, you're intuitively, intuitively moving through the field of time with your infinity. And that's the neutral mind. So, but sometimes we need some help. So when you're in hard times, when you're in difficult, challenging times, it's actually a huge gift. It's actually a huge blessing. And it's a blessing because those hard times, they crystallize you. They crystallize you. You have to push back harder. So when you have events that are pushing on you, they literally are pushing in from the outside. Your auric field, you get pressurized, right? That's what we call it. I'm under pressure. Why am I under pressure? Well, this projection that I'm living in, this challenge that we're here with my mom, with this is going on, it's presenting me with challenges, and those challenges are creating pressure. And that pressure can be a depression of my energy field, because the mind is producing these sort of negative thoughts and I'm reacting to them emotionally and chemically. It's happening in my body and I get pressurized. I get punched down, right? So what do I have to do? I have to push back. I have to push back. And how do you push back? Deeper breath, very powerful breath exercises called pranayama, where I do breath of fire, or I do any one of a number of really cool pranayams that were given by the master that will take me and expand me and bring the soul to bear through the breath. Another thing is you want to do yoga. You want to do physical yoga, which is going to stimulate the glandular system through physical postures and pushing against the body and so on. And then meditation, particularly with mantra usually, but meditation where you're repeating words, sacred words, primal words that then create neuron patterns that will cause the glands to secrete and change your blood chemistry, expand your aura, and that's a push back. So all of those things, which are aspects of Kundalini Yoga, help you to push back. And so when you're under pressure, you push back. And when you push back, you're pushing back with what? You're raising the Kundalini, which is the soul, the light of the soul. So you're pushing back with your soul. The breath is the soul is in the breath. As Yogi Bhajan said, it's the soul that breathes in you. The soul that breathes in you, because the soul creates the pranic force that is your life force when you take an incarnation, when you come to the body, when you come to the earth. And then when you leave, that breath is gone. It breaks, the pranic body breaks, it goes, and you soul and the subtle body take off. So the soul is what comes in and the soul is what leaves. So it's the soul, while you're here, it's the soul that's breathing in you, right? And you think about the autonomic nervous system where you're breathing automatically. That's consciousness. That's the one flow breathing in you. So, so hard times, challenging times are actually a huge gift, because that pressure crystallizes your soul, because you have to use your soul to push back. So you're crystallizing your soul, you're crystallizing your spirit into your physical aura. And we can see that people who've been through tough experience, we can see them. There's a light in them. People who have been through challenging times and come through, well, if they haven't been beat up by those times so bad that they're into drugs and things like that, that lessen them. Somebody who's had a lot of life experience, has met the challenges and stayed on a kind of a healthy path. You see this, you can see it in those people. You can see their life experience. It comes out of them like a light. And that's the radiant body. That's the crystallization of the soul in the aura through your experiences. So these are a good thing. Challenging times are a good thing. And that's why we have to work hard in challenging times to stay expanded. First of all, you got to keep your mind expanded, but you need help. You need leverage, and that's why we teach this practice of Kundalini Yoga, because it gives you that leverage. And then of course that what comes from the neutral mind is that the lens, which you can see intuitively. Very split second, can see intuitively, if I act this way, this is going to go for me and this is going to cause me to flow. So the lens and the lever gives you the ability to move through time and space when things are tough. So start to look at your challenges in life instead of complaining about them or bitching about them, which is what we like to do with our friends and so on. Instead of doing that, see if you can find the gratitude for it. Now, gratitude is an attitude that will activate the blessings in any particular situation. You have a good situation, if you're grateful for it, it'll activate the blessings. Now, there's some people who are cynical and very negative, right? And have you seen these people? I've looked in the mirror a few times and seen one. I used to be so negative that good shit would happen and I'd be like, ah, yeah, well, but blah, blah, blah. And I would come up with some negative answer to what good stuff was happening. That's how negative I learned to be over the years. Thank God this practice has since beat that out of me. But there was a time when even good shit would happen and I'd be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens though? So anything that you're not grateful for automatically becomes its opposite. It becomes, instead of a blessing, becomes a curse. Attitude of gratitude is a fantastic thing to develop for everything. And that becomes one of those secret keys to that, to that flow of life, to that one flow, to that spirit, to that soul. The gratitude is a tremendous universal master key, and it can help you be happy in any situation, no matter what comes along. And so so attitude is everything. And if you can develop an attitude where you can find the good in a situation and then be grateful for that good, and you can open up serious blessings in every situation. And then what starts to happen is that it works for you. And oftentimes that seemingly bad situation will start to open up and dissolve, because it's, you're not sitting there multiplying the negatives by time and space, by complaining and bitching about it. And a lot of times we have tough times, we want to talk to our friends about it. And so we'll call up somebody and we'll start going through all the negatives and this and that, which is natural. Talk helps relieve the pressure, and that's okay. But we got to be very careful with the word and how we use the word. And so when, notice, like when stuff happens, who do you call and start talking about it? And oftentimes your friends will, to make you feel better, they'll be like, yeah, you're totally justified. Yeah, let's be real negative about it. Not too many people will go, well, some will. You might have these kinds of friends, and I hope you do. I hope you're blessed with that. That you call somebody up and, they're like, well, but, look at the positive side of it. I think people used to do that a lot more in the past, but now we're sort of programmed to be very, very negative. At least that's my observation from what I see, like TV, video games, and that kind of stuff reinforces those things. But what we do oftentimes is call somebody and they're like, yeah, that sucks, man. Yeah. Oh, it sucks. It becomes this like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I can't believe that. And so that they help you to stay stuck in the negative side of it. So we should start helping each other look for the positive. If you have a friend that calls you up, and one of the best things you can do is just listen. There's an amazing thing that happens when you listen, when you just listen. You can really open up your spirit. You kind of like, you wrap your spirit around a person when you just listen to them. And that's very difficult for a lot of people, because a lot of people feel like they got to say something. The ego wants to say, well, I got to say something smart here. They're calling me. And so you stop listening to them and start thinking, what am I going to say to sound smart to these people? What am I going to say to look good to this person? And so the art of listening is very lacking in a lot of people, but it's one of the most amazing things that you can develop. And it's actually miraculous and magical when you learn to listen. And there are a lot of people that know how to do this, but when you learn to listen and you just breathe, when somebody's talking to you and you just breathe, and it's even better if you can match your breath to their breath. And if you can match their rate of breathing to your rate of breathing, what happens is your aura sort of wraps around them. You kind of, there's a relay there of the energy, and you sort of intertwine. You can hold somebody with just listening. Your spirit actually wraps around them while they're talking. And I've watched this, little bit of yoga counseling that I've done. The most important thing is you listen to the person, you listen for the cues and respond to those cues intuitively. But one of the best things that you do is you listen to the person and you watch them solve their own problem sometimes, or you watch them go from the negative to the positive, simply because you're listening and sort of holding them with your attention, right? Your energy's going to them because your attention is on them. And it's a brilliant, brilliant thing that you can do. It's just, if somebody calls you with a problem, is going through a hardship, is just listen. Don't say anything. Just listen. They ask you a question, answer the question. But why? Try it sometime. It's the most amazing thing, and you'll be hooked because when somebody's just talking and you can just listen to them, that spirit comes through the both of you, and it's a pretty cool thing. So we call people when we're feeling pressurized by the hard times. We want to relieve that pressure, and the danger is that we start to multiply the hard times. We're multiplying the tough situation by the time and space by just staying in that negative. So that's something you got to be careful of. Um, so I'm gonna cut it off here and leave you with this one story, which is really cool. It's an example of the neutral mind. It's a Chinese parable, and it's often attributed to Alan Watts because he told the story once, and so it's all over the internet. I think it transcends Alan Watts, and I love Alan Watts, by the way, and I love to listen to him. He's a brilliant mind, and you should check him out if sometime. But in this story, his relation of it is very good. And it goes like this: there's a Chinese farmer, and all of a sudden he has a horse, and the horse runs away, breaks out of the fence and runs away. So the neighbors come over and go, "Oh, what a stroke of bad luck! Your horse ran away. That's what a loss." And he goes, "Oh, maybe, maybe not." This is the farmer's response. Next day, the horse comes back with 7 wild horses follow the horse back, and so now he's got 8 horses. And of course, the busybody neighbors, they come over and they're like, "Ah, what a stroke of luck! Look at this. You're rich. You now got 8 horses." And the farmer's replies, "Maybe, maybe not." And so then the next day, the farmer's son, is out there trying to break one of these wild horses. He gets thrown and he breaks his leg really badly in a couple of places. There's those neighbors, those pesky neighbors again. "Ah, we noticed your son has a broken leg. It looks like your bad luck is back." And of course, again, the farmer replies, "Maybe so, maybe not." And then, of course, the next day, another event comes up where the conscription service, so the army, is coming door to door to grab able-bodied young men to serve in the army. That's how they did it back then. And they get to the door, they see the son with a badly broken leg, and they say, "We can't use you, you're useless," and they move on. And of course, once again, the farmer says, "Maybe," right? Because, the neighbors are there. And that's an example of the neutral mind. We go through this life, seemingly good things will happen, seemingly bad things will happen. And there's a saying, the yogi is one whom the pairs of opposites does not affect. So if you can stay neutral and make your best attempt to enjoy everything, and having an attitude of gratitude is one way that you can enjoy everything, because you look for the good in it. You look for the good in it, and you say, "This is happening. This has been given to me from the one flow. The one flow of creative consciousness coming through me has delivered me this experience. Let me be grateful for it. Let me try to enjoy it. Let me have a good time." I can't resist. I got to tell you another story because I love this story. So my teacher, he gets a call from this student one day, and the student says to him, "Hey, I just want to let you know my dad's dying. I'm going to New York." And so my teacher goes, "Well, enjoy." And guys, "I'm sorry, what'd you say?" I said, "Enjoy yourself." And the guy goes, "I'm sorry, you probably didn't hear me. I said, my dad's dying." He goes, "Yeah, no, I heard you." He says, "You got to go to New York because your dad's dying, right?" "Yeah." "Well, you have to go, right?" "Yeah." "You don't have a choice, right?" Says, "But you do have 2 choices. When you get there, you can be miserable, or you can try to find something in there to enjoy, find some way to enjoy it." And of course, I'm sure the guy was silent for a while, but I love that story. My teacher's told it many times, and that was my first kind of inkling into um, this attitude of gratitude, and try to enjoy everything. So it's your choice, because there's always 2 sides to the coin, and whatever you're doing, whatever you're going through, try to enjoy it. And like the Chinese farmer, just don't react. Just don't react. And that's another one. That's a very famous quote from Yogi Bhajan. Just don't react. And that's really where all of our problems come from. right? Because we do have this neutral mind, which when we're in a meditative state delivers us all that creative infinity. So why aren't we like that all the time? Well, because we're busy reacting to the negative, reacting to the positive, and that takes us into one side or the other, and that's where you get kind of torn apart, and that's where the duality becomes painful. But if you can stay in that neutral space as much as possible and not react, just don't react, then you can kind of navigate these things with aplomb. You can navigate these things with grace. You can navigate these things with enjoyment. And that's the difficult times are a blessing. But thank you very much for joining me on this of exploration of life and the teachings. And I hope you'll follow us on all the social channels that you use. We're on all the good ones. We're going to put this stuff on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all of these places, and very likely have them live. So follow us, and for more of this, subscribe. You can subscribe by email on the website jaigopalyoga.com, and we'll let you know when we're doing classes and workshops and retreats and things like that we will eventually do, and just generally send you out good stuff to keep you motivated and keeping up. So thank you very much. I'm Jai Gopal, and this is the One Flow podcast, and many blessings to you, and Sat Nam.